All right, everyone. It's Sam. Once again, we're back with Survivor Wisconsin Season 11, Episode 6, Edgic and Player Analysis. This was an episode to watch. Oh my gosh. There was a lot happening this episode. We got 2 tribal councils and a rejoin all in the same episode. A very quick lightning round, though. So, Edgic's going to be a little bit weird today because like last time we had a lightning round, really not many confessionals to go off of and a lot less strategy time. So, this is going to be an interesting one. We start the episode, of course, with a little bit of a recap of where we're at. Right now, we're at the final 12. Both tribes have 6. Both tribes don't know what's going to happen next, but I'd like to say that I'm proud that I called this last episode where I'm like, this is going to be a double tribal and then merge. A rejoin and merge. I called that exactly. I think. I don't remember if I recorded that or not, but I did call it. Trust me on that one. And so we see now both these tribes go to tribal. And now, with the challenge being essentially Ring Around the Rosie with a lot of extra steps, as soon as you look at these tribe makeups, you're like, okay, so who's winning? Nolan and Sid, yeah. So Nolan and Sid do both win the challenge. Pretty clear cut, but one player from each of the others go home to join Bar and Brandon on Redemption. But, however, before we get to any of that, past Sam, for like the 4th or 5th time, I've lost track. Can you explain Edgic? Here's how Edgic works. Edgic is a portmanteau of the words edgic, edit, and logic. And essentially what it is, it's a concept that tries to figure out who is winning a Survivor season based on how the show is edited. And it's measured through 3 main components. Now, for Survivor Wisconsin, it's a little bit different than the actual show because unlike the actual show where they have 39, or I guess now 26, which kind of sucks, but 26 days of footage to scramble through for an episode. And each episode is like an hour long for 3 days worth of content. Survivor Wisconsin is filmed in 1 day. And it's about, you basically hear everything. That's one of the things about Wisconsin is that you're going to basically see and hear everything that happens in a given episode. And so for Wisconsin Edgic, it's a little bit different. I play a little bit harder, faster with the rules of Edgic, which is why if you've seen Edgic before and you're like, wait, this isn't accurate, it's because I'm doing it a little bit differently. So we're going to start with the rating. This is generally speaking the type of personality, more so the level of personality we see in an episode. First off, INV, invisible, basically not there. You're just kind of in the background, nothing happens. You don't really have a confessional or anything, minimal content. I doubt we'll see an INV in a Wisconsin episode because generally speaking, everyone has at least one confessional in an episode. But that is there just in case it happens. Next up, we have UTR, which is under the radar, where they kind of have a role in the story, and they kind of are just there in the episode, but they really are kept out of focus. Like, there really isn't much development happening for them, and not much is going to happen to them in that episode itself. Next, we have middle of the road MOR, which means that they do more, but they're still lacking in at full level of development. And what I'd say is imagine more so like a supporting character role in a specific episode where they aren't the one driving the story forward, but they are a part of that story. The big one, Complex Personality CP, is where they emerge as both well-rounded and developed as personality. And essentially, their choices are presented to the audience, and we are given insight. Which essentially boils down to they are essentially made the main characters of an episode, or the main character of a tribe, or the main character of just in general. And the sweet spot you want to be in for a winner is you want to be getting a lot of complex personality, because that makes you the main character. And generally speaking, the main character of a Survivor season tends to either win or the story is in spite of them. Finally, we have Over the Top. Over the Tops are generally speaking where they're presented as oversimplified or one-dimensional. And generally speaking, these are people we love to love or love to hate, or just love to watch because they are crazy. Now, with Over the Top, because Wisconsin's a lot more grounded than actual Survivor because of the limited time frame, I tend to give out Over the Tops a little bit easier to more so like you might not be completely over the top, but if you're the only content you're really giving is very one note in a certain direction, I'm probably going to give you an over the top. Which leads to tone. Tone basically saying, hey, are you portrayed on screen in a more positive light or a more negative light? And so positive means that you're significantly portrayed in a positive, and others will likely speak about you in a very positive way. And that is the big thing for Wisconsin, is that if others are speaking about you good, you're likely getting a positive. Neutral means that the narrative really doesn't convey anything about the players, good or bad. There might be a few throwaway comments, be like, oh yeah, I like this person. Oh yeah, this person's, I don't know. But if there's really nothing there, you're going to end up with a neutral edit. Nothing really changes. Mixed is similar to neutral, but instead of it being kind of nothing, it's kind of both, where you're getting both positive and negative recognition enough to where they kind of cancel each other out. And then finally, negative, if you're significantly portrayed in a negative direction, maybe you do something stupid, maybe you do something that is seen as villainous, maybe you do something that might be like, oh, how dare you, in an episode. Or maybe you're talked about in some kind of negative manner. And more often than not, if your boot episode has something to do with something you did, generally speaking, it's going to be negative, because that is what caused you to get out. And so, yeah, that's tone. And then finally, visibility, probably the easiest one to determine. Okay, well, probably the easiest one to decipher. Determining it's very hard, but visibility is just basically how much screen time are you getting in an episode? How much dedicated time is there in the episode for you? And scale, it's 1 to 5. There is technically a 0, which technically goes along with the invisible, but I don't think we're ever going to see that. Now, unlike the last couple episodes, I'm going to be switching things up a little bit here. Now that we've made the merge, of course. I'm going to first, for at least for this episode, I'll go through the entire tribe dynamics for both the two at the vote. But for more in-depth specifics on each player, I'm going to do that more so in the contender rankings, which you will see has changed a lot. So let's just jump into it. Let's start with the Une Une tribe. Now, the story of this Une Une tribe is pretty simple. For this episode, at least. Simply put it, Nikki was clearly on the outs. Andrew went home. Alec has Megan. Corndog has Rachel. Sid's kind of in the middle of all that. And essentially, unless they tried to pull a flip on Megan because Rachel and Nikki have a connection, but Alex squashed it pretty quickly. And truth be told, no one really was up to bat for Nikki that round. I think Rachel was probably the closest to, but she got turned down. And she's upset about it, but look, she can be as upset as she wants. But that's the way the cookie crumbled this round. And you might be noticing Nikki is not grayed out, and we'll get to that. But yeah, overall though, for this tribe, I'd say the player of the episode was Alec. Alec was the one who steered the ship away from the target being Megan. In the first place, being probably the closest player on this tribe to Megan. And for that reason, that's why Nikki went home. Now, as for the Kuru Kuru tribe, it's a lot. There was a lot more happening with this tribe. And truth be told, I want to give player of the episode to Sadie, but I can't because she got voted out. But this round was essentially a mercy kill at this point. Or not a mercy kill. Basically, there's literally nothing she can do round. I think for Sadie to stay in this game, the one thing she needed to have happen was Nolan to lose that challenge. But truth be told, Nolan was never losing that challenge against anyone. And so the moment he won is the moment that Sadie was screwed. And I think she tried her best to stay in the game. She tried to work as much as she could. But Cynthia and Nolan weren't enough numbers to keep her. And the moment she stood up, where she gave this great speech, which honestly, great television, really good television, where she's like, look, these three are very close together. I'm playing my shot in the dark. The moment she said that, she secured 3 votes against her when there was 5 votes. And I think at that moment, you just kind of know. I mean, going into trial, you already knew Sadie was going to get the votes. It was pretty clear. But I think at that point, that solidified her going home. Which sucks. Because truth be told, Sadie's becoming one of my favorite players this season. And I really wanted to see what she could do at Merge. But she got cut short here, which kind of sucks. And damn it, she was like my 3rd winner contender last episode. That aged really bad. And yeah, so I'll get a bit more into these specific Edgic scores of these players when I get to contender ranks. But until then, Nolan, for me, is the player of the episode from this tribe. Nolan does a lot of good. For one, everyone kind of is in the vote together, but Nolan does something very good while being immune, which is he builds upon being immune. Something that really people tend to not do in this game is that when you have that immune necklace, you feel safe and you feel like you don't have to do anything. I can speak for myself. When I had the immune necklace in Colin vs. Chaos, I didn't think I had to do anything. I just kind of sat back and let the game happen in front of me. But Nolan is playing it a lot more proactive and is doing a lot more in the game. Where he's like talking to each, he's like, hey, look, some other people threw out her name. Which in reality, Nolan's the one who said that. So we'll see if that comes back around to him. But, and he's like also going up to talking to Trinity, securing that alliance, talking to Cynthia, securing that alliance, talking to Patrick. He's secured an alliance pretty much with everyone on this tribe, which is props to Nolan for doing so. And yeah. So now we're going to get to a couple of things. First, we're going to show a little bit of a relationship map. Now, we saw on Redemption Island, we saw what happened. We saw that between the four of them, between Bar, Brandon, Sadie, and Nikki, the player to come back into the game was Nikki. Nikki did win that challenge, and now Nikki's back in the game. So, going into the merge, this is what the relationships are looking like. Right now, it's pretty clear-cut. There's kind of two factions. There's the old green GG Alliance, and there's the new blue, or the old blue tribe alliance. Because look, yellow tribe's decimated. They're gone. There's two left, and Cynthia flipped on yellow. Like, they're done. Cynthia flipped on yellow. Nikki just got voted out. I think this is clear-cut two different tribes trying to vie for attention. Right now, it also seems like there's 4 solidified players on each side. Granted, with an asterisk between Patrick and Trinity, where the old blue are all together, the old green are all together. I think Patrick and Trinity are very secure in their spots right now and are not going to have to worry about anything. But I do think they're going to be diametrically opposed here. And then we have Cynthia, Nikki, and Sid on the outs. And I could see them all going either way. I will say, another thing I want to talk about before we touch upon contender rankings, though, is holy hell, this yellow tribe got decimated. This tribe swap, we see 4 straight yellow boots. Literally, we see 4 straight yellow boots. We see freaking Bar, Andrew, Nikki, Sadie, all back to back. And I will be honest, I think the yellow tribe got booted 4 times in a row because the other 2 tribes had to play the game sooner. And I think there's some truth to that. I think the yellow tribe stayed together the whole time. They didn't talk, they didn't game at all. And because of that, going into a situation where everyone else has had a chance to game already, you are at a distinct disadvantage. Now, do I think that is the end-all be-all reason to why they're here? Absolutely not. I don't think that at all. In fact, I think that the Bar boot was on Bar, and the Sadie boot was also on Bar, but like tangentially more so. And then the Andrew and Nikki boots, I think, are the most showing of they should have played the game more. And also Andrew's boots kind of because of his idle play. But truly told, I think the yellow tribe got dismayed because they didn't have the chances that the other 2 did. And now we're here at the merge. And I think Cynthia has probably, out of all the yellows, taken the most advantage of playing the game, which is why, ladies and gentlemen, this is why Cynthia's here. So yeah. But let's get to the contender rankings. Now, for this, unlike last time, for this one, this is when I'll go in depth on each player's Edgic for the episode, as well as give my thoughts on where their game is going. So, we're going to start the contender rankings with 11th place. Sadly, someone has to be 11th place in this game. And truth be told, based on what I'm seeing, 11th place is Nikki right now. Nikki has the first episode, truth be told, I think the first episode of note for a lot of Nikki's stuff happening in this episode. Other than last episode being one of the proponents pushing the other name. And that, of course, being, oh my god, that of course being Sid. But Nikki comes back into the game, truth be told, not in a great spot. I think out of the 4 players to potentially come back in the game, I think Nikki, between the 4 of them, is probably the least likely to stir shit up. And truth be told, here's why. Bar's going to get targeted immediately if he comes back in the game, and he's going to rank hell. So we've already seen Sadie run hell before, and I think she definitely can. Brandon is pissed at his old tribe, and he's going to do everything he can to frickin' redeem himself. Nikki left the game, truth be told, the least upset, and the more so, it felt like Nikki left the least upset and the least resentful and the least everything going out of the game, to where I'm not too sure where Nikki's going to be. For me, Nikki doesn't come off as someone who can play this game ruthless. And look, I truth be told, I might be looking over in my head on this. I've yet to see Nikki pull off a strategic play in this game or a social play in this game. I've yet to see Nikki make a successful move. And truth be told, I hope this is a turning point for her edit. Her entire edit this season so far has been under the radar the entire time up until this point. And truth be told, that might just be... We might see some kind of edit from Nikki be almost like a rebirth edit, where the first half of this game, Nikki has been playing very quiet, very much not playing the game as much, getting voted out. To now, Nikki comes back in the game and she is a force. And I hope we get that. I don't know if we will. That's my problem right now. I don't know if we will. I think what's funny is I think that Rachel was more upset that Nikki got voted out than Nikki. At least from the camera perspective. Now, Nikki probably was very upset. And if Nikki's watching this, hi. Sorry about this. But truth be told, I think Nikki's only lifeline right now is Rachel. I think Cynthia is a distance lifeline, and we'll get more to why I don't think they're that close. But I think Nikki's only lifeline in this game right now is Rachel. She has to put in work to get herself ingratiated early. And I don't know if she's going to. I think that right now, the way the tribes are lined up, to where Patrick and Trinity are very close, and there's 2 warring factions of 4, but Patrick and Trinity being close, that makes it a warring faction of 8. And Nikki, there are 3 players on the outside, Nikki, Cynthia, and Sid. I think Nikki is by far the furthest out of that, and I think she will get targeted at the merge. I think, for me at least, I think she could get targeted at the merge. People might be like, oh, she just got voted out, let's give her a break. But also, I don't see her getting past 10th right now, with how the game's been playing. So we will see if Nikki can turn it around. I'm not confident in Nikki's ability right now, though, in this game. Now, granted, as a game player, I think Nikki can be good. I just think with the cards she has been dealt at this point, she is in danger, and she needs to be good. We'll see, though. Prove me wrong, Nikki. Please, prove me wrong. Next up, we're going to go number 10. And for me, despite having a really good episode, number 10 is Cynthia. At this point, I do not know how to feel about Cynthia's game, because here's the thing. Cynthia has done a good job of keeping herself in the game, but we look at long-term versus short-term goals, and I think there was a very big narrative developing on that yellow swap tribe of, do you look for the short-term or the long-term, or both? And you need to look at both. And the problem I'm facing here is we saw Bar and Sadie very much focus on the short-term aspect of working together, and then that bit them in the ass because they didn't look toward the long-term. Actually, no. Bar looked too much in the long-term. It bit him in the ass in the short-term. Sadie looked too much into the short-term with saving Bar, ended up hurting her in the long-term. For me, Cynthia has been doing good on the short-term. She's ingratiated herself with that Green Alliance, and she has put herself in a spot where she is solid, but the problem is that she is still on the outs of that. I think she's still on the outside of that, looking in. I think the problem for Cynthia, especially last vote, is that we visibly see her contemplating at Tribal Council and whispering with Nolan constantly, to the point where I think Trinity, Patrick, and Deets probably pick up on the fact that Cynthia might not be with us. And right now, we've already seen Cynthia prove it beforehand that she will flip on her allies. She voted out Bar, who is supposedly supposed to be her ally. And then she just voted out Sadie as an act of desperation to save herself. And Cynthia's now stuck at this point where she's going to be seen as someone who will flip on an ally. And that is already a negative in the game, where you need to have allies to win. Truth be told, Cynthia's path to the end is not impossible. I do think she has the strategic chops to do so. I think out of all the yellows, she is, and I call this early as well, she has the most potential to do this. It's a gut instinct that I kind of pick up on watching the show of this player can play, and Cynthia has it. But the problem is, I don't know if she's going to be able to navigate this. I think Cynthia is I think Cynthia could be a pretty clear merge boot. I think Nikki is more likely at this point. I think Cynthia could, though, be an early merge boot, being early on the jury, as this game starts to unfold, before all of the chaos kicks off with that 4-4 split. Truth be told, I think the first couple of merge boats are going to be a little bit boring, to where we're seeing Nikki, Cynthia, or Sid go home. But there's going to be a point where that kicks off, my guess is Final 9, where this game is going to be kicked into high gear. So that's where I'm at right now. Now, next up, 9. You've heard me talk about Nikki. You've heard me talk about Cynthia. Let's talk about... Actually, before I move on, I do want to mention something for Cynthia as well, again. in that Cynthia has a really good episode. I'm sorry, she has a really good episode, despite everything happening. For one, Sadie going home is bad for her. That's true. But she handles it in a very well way, in a way that really doesn't come off bad for her. At that tribal, Sadie kind of tanks Deets, Trinity, and Patrick, and tells Cynthia something she didn't know before. And now Cynthia has a plan going into Merge, to where she could be like, I need to target that group at some point because they are dangerous. And so that gives her a plan. It's something to work with, especially going into Merge. And in the Merge segment, we see a lot of Cynthia in that Merge segment. Now, I'm not sure if this is because Cynthia's then the Merge boot, and so we're seeing the last bit of hurrah for her, or if she's really going to be setting up something. And something else I picked up on is that during a conversation with Rachel and Megan, she brings up, or not Megan left, with Deets and Rachel, she brings up that Nolan told Cynthia that her name was brought up to in the conversation with Deets. Rachel pins up, that might be something happening. We might see that get exploited. We might see Cynthia's join up. We might see her get out. I don't know yet. And that's why she's number 10 on the list. Now, moving on to 9. We've talked about Nikki. We've talked about Cynthia. We're going to have to talk about Sid. Sid has a pretty good episode. For one, he wins immunity and he's safe. Do I think Sid goes home if they lose? I don't know. I personally would say no. I don't think Sid goes home. I think that Corndog and Rachel have put too much work into keeping Sid around that they would not cut him here. They would be stupid to cut him here. I think Nikki immediately pushes Sid's name over someone else, like wanting to split the girls, which, going back to that, I still don't understand the rationale for wanting to target Megan at that vote. Wanting to target Megan at that vote for Nikki is probably one of the worst things she could have done, because it flips Alec against you immediately. And the Green Tribe, who's already in cahoots, who have this girls and gays alliance, are not going to want to flip on that. And so, yeah. Now, with Sid, though. Sid, I think, might have needed it, might have not. He would have gotten votes at that tribal. I don't think he goes home. I still think it's Nikki who goes home. But it's a good thing he has it, because he doesn't have to think about it. And that's why he's under the radar this episode. Because really, all Sid needs to do this episode is lay low, calm himself, vote the right way, and that's it. And ladies and gentlemen, that's exactly what he does. Other than having a funny moment with Nolan later on where he's like, Boston Sid, bad, all that stuff, really pretty quiet episode for him. He won. He's not pushing a name. He's going to let everyone else push a name, and he's going to survive. And that's what Sid's been doing this whole time. Now, we look at Sid long term in this game, and there is a point now where Sid's kind of in the middle of this alliance of 4. There's 2 alliances of 4, right? There's the Blue Alliance and the Green Alliance, where Sid's at the bottom of that green, but he could very easily switch to that blue. He spent a lot of time with Alec and Megan, so I think right now, come Final 9, if Sid is still here, Sid is going to be a very important number for your side to pull. And we might see Sid fall into this very good spot, but he might fall into a very good spot in the middle as Kingmaker. And that is the worst position you want to be in. Because if you are the Kingmaker, if you're the Kingmaker, you're not going to be king. Now, when I say Kingmaker, I mean a Kingmaker in Survivor is generally a term where it's like you have 2 different groups and they're each vying for the win. And there's really 1 contender or 2 contenders from each. A Kingmaker is going to decide which side to flip onto and attach to. And whichever side the Kingmaker goes with, those 2 contenders or 1 contender will win the season. And so right now, Sid's in a spot where he cannot win either way, but he can choose who wins. Which sucks for Sid. But I do think there is a way where he can maneuver his game to where he's not going to be a Kingmaker. Instead, he can actually become the king himself. So, that's it for Sid for right now. Now, next player on the list, we have 8 players who are kind of solidly in alliances. But next up, we got Patrick. And Patrick, I think, it's weird for me with Patrick. For one, Patrick's episode is not really great this time. The most we hear about Patrick, other than him reconnecting with his Blue Tribe, which was good, is that he's getting called out for this knowing Trinity Alliance. And that reflects poorly on him. And it reflects badly on his game, because right now he's getting called out for having too many connections. good thing about connections is that they're helpful, but when everyone knows your connections, that's bad because you're going to be targeted. I think Patrick could be a quick target if that Patrick Trinity connection becomes too strong long term. But it's right now it doesn't seem like it. It seems pretty good. The problem I have right now with Patrick's game compared to the others is that Patrick's game is a lot of playing second fiddle to a lot of other people. With the Blue Tribe Alliance, he is on the bottom of that. And I think he loses to any of them at the final. I think he loses to Alec. I think he loses to Megan. I think he loses to Nolan. And with Trandy and Patrick together, Trandy's been distancing herself as a game player a lot. I think Trandy beats Patrick as well. Right now, Patrick's in a spot where he has a lot of allies in this game. Like if we go back to the relationship map, Patrick has allies with Cynthia, Trandy, Alec, Nolan, Megan. Like I would put one to Deets because I forgot to put one to Deets, but he's got a lot of allies in this game right now. The problem is that when compared to all these allies, with I think the exception of Cynthia, is that in all of these cases, he's not in a winning spot. He's in a second or third place position. And that's why I'm scared for Patrick's game right now. Because I haven't seen enough to confidently say that he's going to do better than them. Now, he can definitely make a move to put himself above those players into a better spot. Because, look, Patrick's got the chops to do this game. He's done similar stuff before. We watched Joe do something similar back in Calm vs. Chaos, and they're close. Patrick's a lot more outgoing, too. And so I think Patrick has a chance to do so, but right now he is not in a great spot if he keeps going the way he is. Next up at number 7, we've got Deets. Now, Deets is playing well. I think Deets is playing this game very well, but Deets is very loud. Granted, this episode she really isn't, on camera at least. She's kind of has a little bit conversations with Nolan, where she's told by Nolan that the Yellow Girls think she's running everything. Which, granted, that's her perception right now. The perception right now for Deets is that she's running everything, which, truth be told, she's not. I think she is in power. I don't think she's the one calling all the shots. I think Trinity's the one right now calling all the shots. And Deets is letting her call the shots. And so, yeah. At this point, Deets is in trouble because her threat level is preceding her. And I think that there is a good chance we see Deets taken out when the time comes for a vote out. Now, Deets has the Idle Nullifier. That's good and all. I don't think the Idle Nullifier... But the problem is that the Idle Nullifier really does not help protect you. It helps you make a move, granted. And we can see, like, on David vs. Goliath, where the Idle Nullifier really helped secure, like, safety, where idols were being played. But that's a very specific scenario. The Idle Nullifier does not help you keep safe. And I think Deets, the problem is Deets needs something to keep her safe, and she doesn't have it. And she has allies. She's close to Trinity now at this point. But I don't have the confidence in her getting to the end. I think she could get to the end and have a good resume, but I don't see her getting there, and that's the problem. But, look, she could start new. She can start to lower her threat level at the merge, but I don't know if that's going to be possible. I think Deets is in a little bit of an impossible scenario where she needs to either lower her threat level, but in doing so give other players more potential in the game, or she keeps playing the way she is, but she gets targeted for being a target. And so, yeah. This episode also, middle of the road, medium 3. I mean, she has involvement in the vote, and she has that conversation with Nolan before the vote, which I think is very interesting. And now she has a clear target come merge. But yeah, other than that, not really much there this episode. I still think she can do well, but it's starting to wane. Now for number 6, we have Trandy. Trandy has, after what was really good the previous episode, I think Trandy has a pretty bad episode here. I think that Trandy's game is getting to the point where she is calling a lot of shots, and she is calling a lot of shots. Which, granted, you might think that is a good thing, to be the one in power and the one in control. I think Trinity's calling too many shots right now, to the point where she is starting to emerge as a threat. with how much she pushed for the Sadie vote last tribal, with how much she was saying in people's ears about the Sadie vote, people are recognizing the power that Trinity has. The power of Trinity and her Trinity, which I think is kind of funny, actually, now I think about it, that they have. And I think Trinity is going to be considered kind of a head of a snake there. And we could see Trinity get targeted for how much she's playing the game. I do think she gets a negative for this episode, middle of the road negative, because one, she pushed the vote, but two, she gets called out by Sadie at Tribal. And everyone sees it. Trinity's target just went from being very, very low to being very, very high, very quick, because of how she's played the swap. And I think now that she's at the merge, she's right in her actual rationale of thinking I should slow down, play it simple, like calm the game down, like be quiet now. I think that is the exact right move Trinity should be making. But the problem is that I don't know if everyone outside is going to agree on that idea. And we could see Trinity get sniped early in this merge for being a target. So yeah, I think she's greatly improved her game since the swap happened, but she's still in danger. So yeah. Now let's get to the next in the top 5. We're going to start with Alec. Alec, once again, has a really good episode. But the thing about the difference I have between Alec and Trinity here is that although he's improved his game since more than both of them have improved their game significantly since the swap, Alec isn't really getting recognized for it. You know, Alec coming into this game is a huge threat just because of his occupation and people knowing that about him. But what's funny is I think he's somehow lowered his threat level through the swap, despite being kind of the targets at certain points. And now he's at the merge with Megan and Nolan both as his allies who are bigger targets than he is. And that puts him in a good spot. Now, though, the problem is that Nolan and Megan are bigger targets than him. And they're the biggest obstacle for him to win. But Alex's closest allies are them. So he needs to find a way to where he can get both Nolan and Megan out without it coming back and getting him out. And that is the impossible scenario that Alec is currently in. He has had a very good string of episodes, and I do think that he has a good chance. I do think he actually could potentially, at this point, talk up himself over Megan. I think Megan, though, is going to be very popular late game and very scary to face against in the final tribal. But, yeah. I mean, Alex improved his game a lot, and he can do a lot to get further in this game, as long as he sticks to what he can until the timing is right. He needs to get the timing right, though. I think sticking with the blue tribe is very good up until a point where he needs to flip and make sure that he isn't targeted for doing so. I'd say for Alec, his prime time to do it would be final 7, maybe final 5. Depending on the makeup of the game, because he would need to get out Nolan and Megan in back-to-back or like some kind of sequential rounds in order to get to final 3 without them. We'll see what happens, though. Now, number 4, Rachel. Rachel finally has a character progression episode, which I'm very happy about, because Rachel has been very middle of the road the entire time. She's been giving a lot of information, but she hasn't been doing a lot of actions. Because, simply put, she's been in a really good spot. And she's been able to kind of lay a little bit low. But now we get to this episode. First off, she is one of the biggest important factors in this vote where Nikki goes home, because unlike Alec, where he pushed it, Rachel was pushing kind of the other way, to where she would rather see Nikki stay in the game. And for her, it sucks, because she's upset now going to vote, like, I don't want to have to vote you out, but I have to, because I literally cannot get the votes on the other way. And, you know, that's that. But for Rachel, it works out, because Nikki's back in the game now. She's got Nikki back in the game. Now, she needs to apologize quickly to Nikki, and I think Nikki will pretty much accept it, because I think she knows that Rachel had to. We'll see, though. I don't know. But we start to see Rachel's kind of strategic chops really come into light come the merge, where there's a conversation with her, Cynthia, and Dietz, where Cynthia and Dietz are talking about the previous vote, and Rachel's there mainly as an observer. And that's how her game has been at this point. Rachel's game has been observe and take notes, take mental notes on everything so that I can act later. And at that point, you can see the mental notes being taken. I mean, she blitzed mouse to the camera when the whole Nolan told Cynthia that her name was brought up with Dietz thing happened, where she's like, oh shit, or something of that line. where she stares at the camera knowingly that this might be important and good information for her. So, yeah. So you might be asking, Sam, why is Rachel 4th? Simply put, the top 3 above her have done more at this point. I think Rachel is a very good, strong contender, and I think she can definitely do a lot more at the merge. But as of now, those 3 above her have done more to prove that they are going to win. But when we talk about tier lists and like winner contention, for me, the winner contention tier starts here at Rachel. Well, yeah, let's see. At number 3, we have Corndog, who has a shockingly quiet episode. Oh my gosh. Corndog has an under the radar 1 here. And that's why he's dropped down a tier. For this episode, Corndog, all he really does is vote. And have a funny conversation about his tattoos. But truth be told, that's kind of it. That's kind of it for this episode. And you know what? It makes sense. For the Nikki vote, he really doesn't have any way or say in it or care in it, really, for whoever goes home between Nikki and Megan. Granted, Megan going home would be much, much, much better for his game long term. Which you'll see why. But, I mean, otherwise, it's kind of there. Kind of taking it all in. And I don't have a complaint about that. That's the thing. I really don't have a complaint about that. I think Corndog is still set up very well. I think out of everyone in that GG Alliance, Corndog still has the best wear potential. But it's starting to look like a 2-horse race between him and Rachel, and I don't know who wins that race. I don't really have much to say about Corndog this episode, other than he's set up for a merge episode that's going to be a lot. We'll see. Number 2, we've got Nolan. Nolan, homeboy, this is going to be fun. Nolan's going to the merge with 2 idols and a lot of allies and a lot of strengths. And I think this episode is showing Nolan as a true contender significantly. He wins the immunity challenge. And unlike a lot of previous immunity winners where when you win immunity, there's this general vibe you get where you are like, okay, look, I'm safe. I can chill. I can step back a little bit. And we see Sid do that exact thing in this episode. I mean, look, when I won immunity in my season, I basically stepped back and it's like, look, I don't want to have to make these decisions. I'm good. Nolan is doing the opposite. Nolan is going in where he's not the one making decisions, but he is making strategic plays while being safe. For one, he goes to Dietz and he tells her that the girls are targeting at her or think she's a threat. And how he's won Dietz over. Then he's like going and having other conversations like has one at Trinity. They lock in together and they're good. With basically being like, hey, look, Sid wants, or not Sid, Trinity's like, oh, Sadie wants her out. And even though Nolan like could push, like, no, we shouldn't get Sadie out. He goes with it. And now Trinity trusts him more. Nolan has a lot of potential and a lot of stuff to make moves with. My question for Nolan at this point is that will he use them in a way that will guarantee him a win? I don't know yet, but he is by far in this cast the one who has the most firepower and the most wherewithal to be able to do so. I think he's going to come into merge as a little bit of a threat just because of how well he did in that challenge. But he's got potential and he's got 2 idols. Like, he has got a lot going for him. He's not number 1 though because it is very, very dependent on how he plays it. We've seen time and time again players who have a lot of power going into the merge on Wisconsin end up not using it correctly and end up going home. We saw it with Ben last season, and we see him get second. We see it with Nolan back in Calm vs. Chaos, where he gets second. We see it with, less so with Vincent. Vincent played a really good game, but he just lost to Dan. But truly be told, we see a lot of players with power come into the merge, and they use it, but they don't use it enough. And I think Nolan can. The question is, will he? So, that brings us to my number 1 contender right now. It's been my number 1 contender in a lot of these episodes, and for good reason. It's Megan. Megan is playing phenomenal. Very phenomenal to camera, too. She has put herself in a spot where she is in power consistently. And I think this is the first episode where I've seen her be in actual true danger. And what's good, I think, about this episode, even with their true danger, is that she really wasn't at all. I think that the only person who would willingly go against her in that vote was Rachel. And she didn't. She went with her. Now, Megan has a lot to worry about coming into the merge now because Nikki is back in the game, and that is bad for Megan. But I think that given her current position and given her numbers around her, that's going to be a non-factor. I don't think Nikki's going to be a problem for her. I think Nikki's going to be a pretty quick stepping stone for her, truth be told. And I think Megan has solidified herself as a good player and a good contender. She's consistently giving a lot of the point of view in these episodes and a lot of power in these episodes to where I think she has the ability to make a deep run and win this game. And we see it in this episode too. I mean, she's getting targeted. She really doesn't have that much content pre-tribal for that. But when we get to the merge, she gets a lot of content where she starts to reconnect with her people. She has a long conversation with Trinity talking about everything. And she's now the one girl on the blue who is able... She is the one person between the blue side and the girls and gays that fits both criteria. Well, Patrick does too, but to a lesser extent. To where Megan is really going to be able to potentially ingratiate with both sides. And that could put her in a powerful position come this game. I think Megan's my current top contender. She could get sniped. She could get sniped mid-merge. But right now, I have her as my top contender to win. So now, guys, that's it for this episode. This is where we're sitting now. We are 6 episodes in. We are a little over halfway through the season. And we still got a lot of votes left. There's 11 left. We're going to get to 3 at the end. How are we going to get there by then? I don't know. I think literally there's 5 episodes. And there's 5 episodes and 9 votes. We're going to see, unless the finale starts at 6, we're going to see a double boot almost every episode except 1. So I don't know where we're going, but I'm excited to see it. I hope all y'all at home are too. So, this has been Sam. This has been episode 6, and I'm signing off. See y'all.